Hey guys, hope you're all having a great day. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make a moss pole just like the one that you see here. It's not very difficult of a process, just a few things that you're going to need in order to make this. First is going to be some sphagnum moss. This will be your filler. You're going to need some sort of stake. I have this bamboo stake right here, and you want to make sure that it's longer than how much you're going to make the moss pole because it's better to start off with something too tall than versus too small. And then some type of hardware cloth. This one I bought, and I'm gonna link everything down below if you wanna just order online. This is 2 feet tall by 5 feet wide, and this will allow you to make 6 moss poles with that one roll of stuff. You're gonna need more sphagnum moss than this to make 6. You can actually make 2 of them with this amount of sphagnum moss, but at least with that you'll make 6. Besides that, just something to measure with. I'm using a measuring tape, but a ruler should work just fine. Some type of zip ties. These are 8 inches long and they're a little bit on the thicker side. It's better to go for more of the thicker, heavy duty zip ties. This is the package that they came in, but there's multiple sizes in that. And then just a couple type of things to cut with. So pliers would be best since you're cutting the hardware cloth. I don't actually have any pliers, but I have just regular garden pruners and these seem to work just fine. So something for that. And then I also have this larger like lopper type of shears. That's actually going to be used in order to cut this down. So just something that'll work. And preferably if you have loppers that are meant to cut dead wood, that works best for bamboo. But if you have some other type of stake that you're using, then just something that can cut that pretty well. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so the first step is going to be cutting our hardware cloth. This is not the easiest thing to do, but it's certainly doable. What you want to do is, I realized that a 10-inch amount of hardware cloth works pretty well. So you just want to kind of spread it out as best as you can. It's best to kind of roll it out and make this work with you a little bit more so you can kind of bend it back. But don't bend it back too much because you actually want it to curl for when you actually make the pole. Then what you can do is grab something like a tape measure or whatever it is that you want to use, and then just start from the end and measure out at about 10 inches. So I have 10 inches down here, and then what I can do, it's not easy with one person, but certainly doable. You could take whatever you're pruning with and then just go to that 10-inch mark and make a cut. So I can move this out of the way now, and then from this point forward, you can see my cut is right here. I can just follow this path, and I'm gonna cut the rest of these all the way to the back until I have my own separate piece of hardware cloth. Okay, so I have my piece of hardware cloth cut, and now I have my bamboo here. What I want to do is have one side of the bamboo stick out a little bit further, and then the other piece come to just below the top. What I'll do is I'll make kind of a stake out of the bottom, so that way one part of it can sit inside the pot, the rest of it can provide structure for the rest of the moss pole, and then I want to cut it just shy below the top so that way it doesn't stick out above it. So the first thing I'll do is kind of determine the bottom side, which I think I want this side to be the bottom. And then what I can do is I have my loppers here. Just try not to cut the hardware cloth. I mean, you could just move it out of the way. So that's cut. And then I think what I want to do is the pot I'm putting it in is pretty narrow. So I'm going to cut this probably to about here. Okay, and then I'm actually going to move this out of the way. And what I want to do here, just to give it a little bit more stability, especially if you have like a deep pot that it's going in, I'm going to just try to cut it on an angle. So this is what it looks like now. You can see it's just a tiny bit away from the top, and then I still have some parts of the bottom open, and then it also has a nice cut to go through that soil. So this next part is going to be a little difficult, so I want to try to explain it a little bit first. Basically what we're going to do is use these zip ties to hold the whole thing together before we end up stuffing it. What I want to do is use 2 of these zip ties, basically here and here, like 1/3 of the way and then 2/3 of the way, that we're going to hold this in place. However, we're not going to hold it on this part. We're actually going to hold it to the edge here. So we'll hold it onto one side, And then with 3 of them, one on the end, one in the middle, and then one on the bottom end, we're gonna hold these 2 pieces together. So the first thing I can do is kind of bring this over to the front, and then I'm going to stick this in the middle, which I'll just show you kind of what it looks like. I'm going to stick it in between here and here, so that way that can hold in one spot. It doesn't have to be perfect either, just remember that. All you're doing is just trying to get some stability. Then I can take my zip tie, and then I can just hold it together just like that. I'm going to do the same thing with this side. Just so that way these are out of the way, I'm going to just clip these. And now this bamboo stake is stuck on here. So this next part, what we're going to do is grab another one of these, and I'm just starting at the top here. What we're going to do is basically fold this piece over, and it does help to kind of roll the entire thing a little bit, so that way you can kind of already get it into the shape that it needs to be. So you're kind of working with the hardware cloth and not so much against it. You can see it kind of brings it to one spot for me. So once you have it rolled, what we're going to do is we're actually going to overlap this hardware cloth over one, and this will help so that way the sphagnum moss can't escape. You want to go where the bamboo piece is, because this helps just give it all more stability. I just go like maybe 3 down, and then you can leave it open for now because you kind of have to stick your hand in there. You'll see more for the middle one. I can stick this piece in here, and then you can see there's 1, 2. This is the same thing I did on the other side. You want to go the second piece in, stick this out. Then what you can do is, don't worry about lining it up yet, just worry about putting the actual zip tie through, just so it's tightened a little bit, so that way you don't need to worry about it. Then you can push it together for how you want it to be. So you can see I have it overlapped once, and then with your other hand, just pull it through. And then that's held in one place. Now I can clip it, and that top piece is done. So I'm gonna move this down a little bit. I'm working pretty much right in the middle at this point. And we're basically gonna do the same thing again, where I'm gonna maybe stick it in right here. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's why you don't wanna like have it completely over to begin with, because you do have to stick your hand in. But same premise as last time. So you stick it in the second one, and then just match it up with the other one. Here's 1, 2. This can go through. That rhymed. Now you can stick this in to get your zip tie fastened, hold this over, and then pull this through. I can cut this. There we go. And then we'll move on to the third one and just do the same exact thing as the last 2. And this one you can go all the way to the bottom if you want to. So I have this. Stick it through. And then I just want to match it up. It might get a little stuck while you're doing this. It's totally normal for that to happen. But just try your best to have it match up. All right, now I can cut this one. Okay, so at this point, what you can do is just kind of take a look at it. You can kind of see that it's a little bit bent. So I'm just gonna work on trying to make it as circular as possible so it's not too bent. If you wanna add a couple other supporting ones, like you can see it does kind of come up a little bit here and a little bit here. You can add another one, or if you wanna cut these back, you can do that as well. I just make sure that these are gonna be in a place where nobody really has access to them. You could also add like a piece of black electrical tape or something like that if you wanted to. The other thing I will mention too, which I just didn't bother doing, you could always fold this whole thing back one before you actually zip tie it on, or just push all of these down, and that'll help as well. But I'm not too concerned about that for today. The next thing we can do though is fill this up with sphagnum moss. So it's just long fibered sphagnum moss. Like I said, you can fill about 2 of these per one bag. And then I'm gonna be using like this leftover piece to help push it through, because you do have to kind of stuff it and then push a little bit of it in. But it's pretty simple. All you really need to do, I'm gonna start from the top because it is easier, is just grab a handful of sphagnum moss, push it inside, and then Just kind of keep doing that. You don't want to have it like completely stuffed because you do want good airflow and you want the roots to be able to grow through this sphagnum, but you do want to make sure that there's enough. And then once you get to a point like this where you can't really stuff it, then you can just use something to kind of push it through and just push it along a little bit. So I'm just going to keep filling this up, and this will be just about done. All right, so this is pretty much it. Now we can just put it on our plant. So here's my philodendron right here. I'm gonna put the stake right about here, and I think it's better to put the bamboo stake on the back side because this looks more attractive than this back side here. So I can just stick this in, and then I can just tie my philodendron right on. I just wanna make sure this is straight. So then I just have these little twist ties here, and I can just hold it together. All right, and that's pretty much it. So here is the home where the philodendron was, back with its moss pole now, and I think this looks great. And here is the philodendron. So I have this one leaf that's starting to trail up. There's one leaf here, and then as it goes up, I'll either tie it or the aerial roots will grow inside of there. When you water plants, you can water them down from the bottom, but if they do start to put roots in, you have to make sure that the roots will stay moist. So you can just water it in from the top and just do a slow, gentle stream. You can actually flip a water bottle upside down and just have it slowly come out. Like if you poke a couple holes in the top and then poke a couple holes in the bottom, that will help it slowly drain through as well. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys in this video. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comment section down below. Besides that, I hope you guys like this video, and I will see you in the next one.